It had been several days since I left the capital, and I could still see it when I closed my eyes. The people lined up on the Grand Point, awaiting entry, eager to start a new life there, brimming with hope. It was a city people were willing to pay high taxes to live in. If you were a performer, you could get some of those costs shaved down a bit by putting those skills to use. The capital was harsh on those who wanted in, and apathetic about all who left. It was composed of a powerful nobility and clergy, wealthy merchants and bankers, and a large population of poor. And it was the city I had called home for a long time. I didn't know much about where I was heading. It's getting foggy. Looks like it might rain. Maybe we should take a little break? You want to keep going? Oh, all right then. The coachman was frustratingly taciturn. He acted as though he had gotten stuck transporting a prisoner, though that was hardly a stretch. From his point of view, I was nothing more than a criminal. Even the times he would acknowledge I had said anything, he made no effort to hide the scorn in his eyes, to pretend he didn't regret ever taking this job. And I would just fall silent again. The road was gradually getting narrower. We had long since left the paved city roads behind, and were now traveling along a couple worn-down grooves in the forest. How did I end up here? Why was I being subjected to this? I was done thinking about it. The more I thought on it, the less fair it seemed. The more I remembered, the worse it hurt. All I could do anymore was close my eyes and weather the storm. Deep within the dense woods, a mansion appeared before us, like the world fading into view after a dream. It didn't seem to be an especially large house, but it had obviously been constructed with a great deal of care, and it was, thankfully, not standing in ruins. This deep in the forest? The carriage came to a stop, and the coachman climbed down, signaling with his chin for me to get out. Thank you very much. You must be tired after such a long journey. This is the mansion I'm looking for, yes? But the driver didn't even acknowledge me, getting back onto the carriage and setting off into the forest. He seemed to want to get as far away from here as quickly as possible. I could have said something. Oh well. That was about all I could say anyway. Oh well. I couldn't blame anyone for my being here, or for his wanting to get out. I should get going, I guess. Getting a better look at it, the house's windows were, strangely enough, all shuttered. It was probably dark as pitch inside. Does no one live here? But if that's the case, then why was I placed my hand on the front door. Such a big door. What if I couldn't get in? I had no idea what else there was in the area. If the door didn't open, then I would die out here in the forest. I've come to accept much, but I was not ready to forfeit my life yet. Please open. It's not locked, I guess. The door was heavy, and though it seemed to protest my attempts to enter, it still opened much easier than I was expecting. I was worried over nothing. Looking in, I got the strangest impression that light was being swallowed up into the mansion's depths. Rather than going inside, I felt as though I was about to step outside the boundaries of this world. When I closed the door, it was so dark I couldn't even tell where I was walking. I wonder if the window's open. Though I managed to fumble my way over to a window, It was tightly shuttered, and the shutters were caked with rust. I was probably not getting it open without a fight. Darn, not a hint of light. I couldn't even see my hand waving in front of my face. It felt as though the floor would fall out from under me and I would sink into eternal darkness if I didn't watch my step. Fighting back that fear, I slowly walked forward, tracing the wall with my hand. There was a door at the end of a long corridor. I pulled it open, and a wisp of bone-chilling air brushed past me. It was too dark to see anything, but I could feel something different present in this area than the rest of the house. Uneasiness gripped me. Hello? Is anyone there? Oh, please don't tell me it's actually abandoned. I suppose I can't know without looking around a bit more. My voice simply disappeared into the void. No response. As I pushed forward through the freezing air, for a split second, I spotted a shimmer of light. Squinting my eyes, I was able to make out a large window. Unlike the others, it wasn't shuttered. What do we have here? Drapes? I see a little light beyond. My chances were slim, I imagined, but if there was even a slight possibility of getting some light in here, it was worth a shot. So I pulled open the drapes. I almost said the next morning. The next moment, faint but colorful light shone down on me. It was a stained glass window. From beyond the glass, I could hear the subtle pitter-patter of rain. It had finally started, it seemed. The different colors of light blended into a milky white, dim but wondrous. It's so pretty. It looks like an angel? Why would someone cover this up? It's beautiful. With a little more light, it'd be...
Please do not touch the drapes. Or the windows.
Suddenly I heard a voice, and I could sense someone else in the room. The man's voice was emotionless, neither deep nor high. Before long he came into view, illuminated by a dull orange candlelight. I'm sorry for coming in uninvited, but, I did announce myself. The man stood there, practically blending in with the darkness. Had he been there the whole time? He was staring straight at me. His gaze wavered slightly, but not enough for me to read anything in it. And again, I could hardly make out any detail at all under the light of a single candle. Is this, your mansion?
It is.
Thank goodness! I was afraid it was deserted.
I suspect you would have preferred it if the house were abandoned.
Oh, not at all. I would be scared to death staying in this dark mansion all by myself. I'm sorry. No ill will intended. But I do think it could do with some light. That way you could see where you were walking. And I'm sure this room would look splendid illuminated.
Not necessary. I make do perfectly well as things are.
How can you see when it's so dark?
I have an abundance of candles and oil for lamps. I am not in want of means of creating light. It is not your place to criticize my lifestyle. If you need light, you are free to leave. If you are in need of money, help yourself to some of the furniture. There's a village not far from here. Trade it for food, then make your way to a larger town.
I am no longer able to freely return to the city. I cannot go back there. Please, don't chase me out.
I see. And do you ask this of me aware of how people refer to this mansion?
They say that a witch lives here.
Not merely a witch.
A cursed witch.
If you remain here, you too shall likely suffer your own destruction.
You're worried for my well-being? Witch or not, my mind is made up. I was sent to this cursed witch's mansion to atone for my transgressions back in the city. It didn't matter what lived here. I had no choice.
Which will strike you first, I wonder? Regret or the curse?
You seem to be doing just fine. It's only a tale.
The witch is real. Very much so. It is not a legend, nor a fairy tale. The witch.
The witch's name was Morgana.
Is me. Do you see already, just with this one track, it sets it apart from the quote-unquote fourth door, where the music felt sort of lifeless and sort of whatever, drab. Not to say it's badly composed in the slightest, it's supposed to give off that vibe. It's masterful. But that track just there, I believe it's called Hex, it just endows both characters in the setting even with such a sense of life. It feels real. It makes them feel larger than life, yet still somehow grounded in harsh reality. And all the tracks for this door are like top 10 material for the whole game. And they all evoke that same feeling. Yes, that was our first encounter. It was nothing flowery or dramatic. It was, rather, laced with suspicion and weariness. We knew nothing about one another, and I had no interest in changing that. But nonetheless, that was where it all began. Where my history with her commenced. Oh, here we go. The woman had jade eyes. Open wide, they glimmered like jewels in the light shining through the stained glass window. She seemed to be at a loss for words. I wasn't lying, per se. The rumors said a witch lived in this house, and I was the only one who filled that criteria. Thus, said rumors could be interpreted to be talking about me. After staring at me dumbfounded for a few moments, the woman suddenly burst into laughter.
Oh, wow! Here I was thinking you were kind of scary, and it turns out you're actually quite funny.
What?
I never would have guessed you were someone to tell such a ridiculous joke with a straight face.
I wasn't.
You don't look at all like a witch. I mean, it's dark and I can't really see, but you seem to me like a rather handsome man.
The word witch. The word witch has broader meaning than just a woman who practices magic. Any unholy person with cursed powers, man or woman, can be considered a witch.
I think I get what you're trying to say, but my mental image of a witch is definitely more a woman.
Wait, was that out loud that he said that? No. Oh, it was. Oh, shit. Oh, well. Oh, well. It's fine. I didn't read it like that, but it could be interpreted that way.
So you're not a witch? To tell the truth, I didn't know who might be here, which had me rather scared. but I think I can make this work.
What do you...
It's a pleasure to meet you, Master.
Master?
I was sent here from your old home. I was an Abigail for your mother, but, well, I might have made a little goof.
I froze up the moment the word left her mouth. Home. It rattled around in my skull, shaking up terrible memories that almost brought me to my knees. Why, after all these years, were they reaching out to me now? And not even sending someone to bring me back, just sending someone. To what end? For what purpose had they shipped an Abigail out to this remote mansion? What was my mother thinking? Was this another one of her attempts to break my curse? What do you mean you made a little goof? What do you mean you made a little goof? My voice came out weak. I did my best not to let it show on my face.
It was a teeny tiny mistake. Nothing you need to concern yourself with.
What did Mother say about me?
Well, it was actually your father who told me to come here. I never really spoke to your mother much.
Father sent you? That made even less sense. Why would he have? Did Father even know I was here? No, if he had known, I would have been... Who was this woman? And what was her goal in asking me to stay here? In asking to stay here?
Well, there you have it. I'll be here for a while. If you need me for anything, do not hesitate to ask. I'm confident I can handle most everyday tasks. Now, where should I begin? Oh, I know. Are you hungry, Master? Food. I can't imagine you eat much being as skinny as you are.
I turned my back on her without responding. No matter what her goal was, she had been sent from that house. There was no way anything good could come of that, and there was no way I could live with someone who had ties to them. I prayed she would take the hint, give up, and leave.
Master?
And so I kept ignoring her.
Master! Master!
I ignored.
Master!
I ignored her.
Master, what would you like for supper?
Nothing! But failed, spinning back and shouting. I could do a better shout than that. Nothing! Maybe. I don't know. Was that too hostile? I think the first take was actually maybe more appropriate. Should have just gone with my gut. Which I did for the first take. Her eyes went wide, and then she gave a sheepish giggle. I glared at her as she fidgeted uncomfortably. Fidgeted.
Eating is one of the most basic human needs, so if you're hungry, you really should eat.
I said I didn't want... What was that sound?
Must you ask? That's not a very polite thing to ask a lady, you know.
Huh?
It was a long trip, and all I had to eat on the road was dried fruit. I felt like I was some kind of animal. So, what I'm trying to say is that I'm hungry.
That wasn't the sound of her stomach growling, was it? I thought lightning had struck in the distance. That wasn't the sound of her stomach growling, was it? I thought lightning had struck in the distance.
And would like some supper.
The kitchen is at the far end of the hall on the first floor. There's food in the cellar. Help yourself to any of it.
Thank you so much. I honestly feel like I haven't eaten in days and I'm about to die of starvation. Oh, and I shouldn't need any help finding it. I plan on exploring the house anyway. It's rather exciting being in a new place.
Damn it. That did not go as planned. Oh well. She can do as she pleases. I'll have nothing to do with it.
Oh, Master, are you sure you don't?
No.
Master. Master.
What is it now?
My name is Giselle. It's a pleasure to meet you. And your name, Oh, Master, you...
I actually left the room that time, making my way back to my chambers. At some point, I would seriously have to chase her out, especially considering she had come from that house. But regardless, I was not terribly fond of her.
I didn't really understand Michelle. But that was probably because we were still essentially strangers. Having been sent to the mansion as reparation for my mistakes, I wasn't sure who I might find there. But I was tentatively convinced he wasn't a terrible person. He didn't do anything to me, except stay away. Michel spent most of his time in his chambers, which he had told me to never enter under any circumstances, so we rarely encountered one another in the halls. For that reason, I made an effort to be kind and cheerful on the sporadic occasions we did cross paths. I figured if I kept that up long enough, he would eventually warm up to me. And his new housemates being able to enjoy our time together was obviously preferable to the alternative. If I did manage to break the ice, I hoped we would be able to do some talking. About the mansion, about him, about me. I just had to keep working at it. Michel didn't need me to take care of him. He handled his own day-to-day needs and activities by himself, and in fact, he didn't ask me for anything. An aristocrat who had no use for his servant. I hadn't met anyone like him before. Alright then. That meant about all I could do was clean. I wasn't sure about how his room looked, but the rest of the house was, quite frankly, an absolute disaster. The dust was so heavy it was obvious it hadn't been touched in years. Let's get started. It couldn't be healthy to live in these conditions, so I set out to clean each room in the house one by one. That said, it wasn't going to be an easy task. Not because I was bad at cleaning, in fact I considered myself quite good at it, but because it was near impossible to find all the dust and grime that needed cleaning under the flickering light of a candle. I can't understand how anyone sane can live in this dark. What's wrong with him? Maybe he's actually a vampire. Did vampires exist in lore at this time? In mythology? I was under the impression that was more of a latter half of this millennium type deal. And also, it's not much of a spoiler to say, they're in France. Would French people even know about vampires if they did exist at this time? I don't know. Especially someone like Giselle who, well, I won't say too much. Oh god, wouldn't that be something? I can see it now, him sneaking out every night to suck the blood of pretty girls. Priceless! That means I'm in trouble.
Wait, that was weird.
That means I'm in trouble.
I don't know.
Look at me, Miss One-Woman Comedy Show here. Yep. If I am able to get him to warm up to me, though, maybe that'll give me a little more room to make some changes. Like opening some windows. No light and no fresh air. No, thank you. Anyway. I set the candlestick down, pulled over a chair to stand on, and started wiping down the shelf. The chair's legs seemed to be uneven as it wobbled slightly beneath me. So many books. I wonder, do they all belong to him? I knew parchment was expensive, so it was rather astonishing seeing this many stacks of it in one place. There were even some books with bulky, extravagantly decorated covers. He does come from an esteemed family. I'd spent enough time at his family's home. It was a constant bustle of servants and guests, the exact opposite of what this mansion was like. Why had he left his home? What had he done to be sent all the way out here, to this remote mansion with a less than savory reputation? I need to be careful not to overstep my bounds. I am a servant now. A servant. But once the thought had crossed my mind, I couldn't get it out. I'd always had a bad tendency to chase my curiosities as soon as they struck, pushing the I'd always had a bad tendency to chase my curiosities as soon as they struck, pushing to scratch the itch no matter how much my actions annoyed others. I couldn't do that here, though. I was simply a servant, and if I got on Michelle's bad side, I risked getting thrown out. I wonder what kind of books he's gotten here. So I attempted to distract myself. I grabbed one of the books and attempted to pull it out. What? But the strings binding the parchment must have gotten tangled at the back.
Okay.
What? Whoa! Because the books on either side tilted back with it. Ah! And then the entire row came crashing down on top of me. Ow! Oh, for cripe's sake! Cripes. Ah, for cripe's sake! I had fallen off the chair, and a downpour of books was still coming down on me, a mountain of dust with it. Seriously?
What are you doing?
What? Suddenly, Michelle was there, looking down on me from a little ways away. There was, as usual, not much I could read from his expression, but I could hear a vague trace of exasperation in his voice. I was doing some cleaning and...
Impressive work.
I'm usually better than this. It's just so dark, mistakes should be expected. I really think we should open some windows, Master. Get some light, some fresh air flowing through here.
I never asked you to clean anything. You did this entirely yourself.
But there's so much dust. It can't be good for you.
I'm perfectly healthy. I don't see the problem.
Had he even seen himself? No way someone that skinny was perfectly healthy.
He's not that skinny. It's probably just the clothes that make him seem a bit bulkier. Yeah, now that in proportion to his face, yeah, he's pretty skinny. Yeah. You look like you have something to say.
He can make out my face in this darkness? He can make out my face in this darkness? Oh, you know, I want it to be useful, and cleaning is about all I can do here, so, you know.
I was sensing something else, but alright.
He let out a sigh, stepped over the pile of books, and then reached his hand down for me. I suddenly felt a pang of embarrassment about the fact I was still splayed out on the floor, but I raised my hand up to take his, only for him to pick up a book instead. You could at least help me up!
You have legs,
he said, casually returning the book to the top shelf. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he was a terrible person.
My god, it's amazing. I was trying a little bit to voice Michelle in the fourth door as sort of, oh god, that lighting, so beautiful. Was trying to voice him in the fourth door as more sort of, like, generically emotionless, and, like, without many motivations at all. And, like, I was trying a little bit to do that, but mostly it was the dialogue that was aiding in my performance of that. And now here, I'm not even necessarily trying to voice him any radically differently, but the dialogue just brings out more life and humanity in him this time around, so the performance naturally follows. And that's fucking rad. That is rad.
So, Master, are all these books yours?
Giselle asked, not a trace of remorse visible on her face, despite having made a mess of the room she was supposedly trying to clean. I gave a curt nod.
Really? That's impressive.
Ooh.
Sorry, that was my stomach grumbling again. No, it wasn't. Must have been hard work getting them all in here, huh? There's gotta be 100 books in here. You could fill a whole carriage at least. It's like you've got your own personal library.
She had been pouting only a few moments earlier, but her smile was back in short order. Her jade eyes were like little balls of curiosity, glittering in the faint candlelight. I was not particularly fond of overly expressive, rather... let me try that again. I was not particularly fond of overly expressive, rather overly curious women. Did they not care that they trampled uninvited into other people's personal spaces? Or were they not even aware that their actions were invasive? I averted my gaze from hers. I receive one roughly every month.
Ah, I see. Wait.
She turned back toward the shelves. I presumed she understood the implications of what I had just said, of the fact that there were nearly 100 tomes here, and I received only one a month. Now this is where I have beef with this background. I think in the original version of this game, this background was more abstract, so you couldn't see exactly how many books there were, but there are way, way more than 100 here. And I'm going to assume that we're not even seeing the full library, so there's definitely more than 100. I took the time when they made this claim on the first playthrough to count all of them. They total more than 100. Yes, they do. And on the very slim chance that they actually do total under 100, because I'm not taking the time to count again, and that was years ago now, or a year ago now that I did this, and they actually are less than 100, and I just look like a fool, then that's just going to be how it is, I suppose. But come on, look at it, it's more than 100, come on. Of the fact that there were nearly 100 tomes here, and I received only one a month. Giselle fell silent. I couldn't blame her if she thought my circumstances, or my family, or my life bizarre. But I didn't care what she thought of me. In fact, it was to my advantage for her to be uncomfortable. I just needed her to stay quiet and keep her nose out of my business. There's more than I thought. Okay. More than he thought, but still, I think, way over the rough estimate you gave. I said not to her, but to myself. I had no reason to count the passage of time anymore. But yeah, even doing the math of how long he's been here, which we find out later, there should be far fewer books, I believe. I'm fairly certain. Only the books served as a record of how long I had been here.
121!
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's more than that. What?
There are 121 books. 10 years in 1 month.
You were counting? I thought she had just sheepishly gone quiet. What an inscrutable woman.
You've been here in the mansion for that long? All by yourself?
The truth was, there had been times when I wasn't alone, but Giselle had no need to know that. You already know the answer. A look of pity formed in Giselle's eyes. Enough. I never asked for her sympathy. I am here by choice.
You mean you weren't banished here?
No restraint, this woman. No. I came here of my own volition. I didn't care enough to elaborate, though. Picking another book up off the floor, I brushed the dust off its cover. It was a gaudily decorated tome.
That's a very fancy book, isn't it?
But apparently Giselle was unable to take a hint.
What's it about?
I let out a sigh and opened to no page in particular, sticking the book out toward her. She was a servant and a woman. There was no way she could read.
Let's see here. This land is hardly suitable for cultivation. It can only produce over-sour grapes. I would probably get more out of it if I tore down the fields and made it into a market. It sounds like a lord's diary.
You can read? I was caught slightly off guard. It was rare for a noble woman to be able to read and write, let alone a servant. Was she truly what she claimed to be?
I had someone teach me. So is this book any interesting?
Oh yeah. It's dull, worthless tripe. I can't imagine why anyone thought it was worth binding.
Tough crowd. But it's not very often you get to see a lord's diary. I am rather curious what kinds of things he griped about.
Lord or king, what value is there in another's grumbling? There was no knowledge contained within that book. Just emotions, unsightly scribbles. And there was nothing more exhausting in this world than being emotional. If you want to read it, be my guest.
That wasn't my intention, but alright. Once I've got the whole mansion cleaned, I'll read it.
I told you, you don't have to clean.
Oh, I've got an idea, Master. If you're interested, maybe we could read together.
Did you hear a word I just said? It's dull, worthless tripe.
Still, you might see it differently if you read it with someone else. And I'm sure there are some books here you would enjoy, Master.
You're wasting your time. The suspicion and restraint budding between us was trite and insignificant at that point. She was still smiling, after all. If I had been able to maintain that distance, then perhaps I wouldn't have ended up hurting her. And notice now that it's no longer story time. We no longer have the eye catches.
It had been a little under 2 weeks since I had moved in with Michel. Though we lived in the same house, we rarely saw each other. On unlucky days, I wouldn't see him at all. I wasn't sure if he ate in his room or our schedules were simply misaligned, but we never had any meals together. Perhaps he was deliberately avoiding me. That has to be it. I know servant and master don't usually eat at the same table, but even so, he could be a little less obvious about it. Am I really that much of a nuisance? I'm not doing anything inappropriate, am I? I'm being pleasant and sociable, aren't I? I haven't given him any reason to not like me, I think. I hope. He had never been very enthusiastic about my staying here, but I hadn't been given a choice. I had been sent here by his family. Besides... Now, out with the negative thoughts. Gotta stay positive. Yeah, he hasn't tried to chase me out yet. I just haven't broken the ice. I had to stay positive, optimistic, happy thoughts, and be myself. As long as I kept working at it with enough time, Michelle would surely come around and not be so distant. I've got a goal, so let's get to work. First, I make supper, then I ask him to have it with me. Gotta be proactive when it comes to the reclusive types. Alright, here goes. Or here would go, but we're almost out of supplies. Well, so much for that. The cellar was where the non-perishable food was stored. Dried food, smoked meats, cheeses, and a small scattering of root vegetables. Looking at this makes me feel like a soldier holding down a castle's fortifications. Had Michelle really gone 10 years on nothing but this? I would have raised the white flag long ago. He said he hadn't left the mansion at all in those 10 years. I assume he at least goes out to get supplies, right? Running out of food is kind of a life or death matter. I can't believe he hasn't set foot outside even once, and...
What are you babbling on about?
Ah! Oh no, he overheard me.
I assumed you were talking to someone.
Huh? Does anyone else live here, Master? I haven't seen anyone.
It's just the two of us. Alive, anyway.
You mean there are ghosts?
Something of the sort.
There you go again with the jokes. I'm not a child. You're not going to trick me like that.
There are adults who believe in such things.
I suppose, but I don't really believe in ghosts or demons or curses or any of that. The church just tries to convince people they're real so they can squeeze more money out of them.
Am I going to have to turn you over to the church, you Am I going to have to turn you over to the church, you blasphemer?
No. I pray every day, honest.
I don't particularly care either way. I'm returning to my chambers.
What? Already? You didn't come down for food?
I only came down because I heard voices.
A moment. Please, just a second.
What?
Let's... a moment. Please, just wait a second.
What?
Our stores are almost empty. What do you normally do when you need more food? I'll happily accompany you on a trip to the market.
Already? That was fast.
There are two of us. I really don't eat that much, do I? In the dim light, it was difficult to make out Michelle's expression, but I thought I could see a tinge of annoyance on his face. Hold your ground, Giselle. You said you wanted to get closer to him. Ah, is that a parsnip? Michelle was holding a tangled ball of roots. The reason I asked was because the parsnip looked like it was on the verge of total decomposition.
See, there's still food.
He then handed it to me. Wait! You want to eat that? It's clearly seen better days. You're gonna get sick. Or are you telling me you can survive on rotten vegetables?
Of course I won't eat it. I just figured you were hardly enough to survive.
What do you think I am? No, he is definitely a jerk.
Or that the resultant diarrhea might reduce your appetite.
You're kidding, right? You can't be serious. Anyway, We should bury that outside. Then we can go purchase fresh supplies.
I told you I don't go outside.
Then how do you... Huh? A visitor?
Oh, right on cue. Wait, hold on. I feel like I read something wrong. Of course, I won't eat it. I just figured you were hardly enough to survive. I don't get it.
Huh? A visitor? Who could it be?
Perfect timing. You're a servant. Make yourself useful and go retrieve the package. If it's not a delivery but a wanderer, chase them out.
What package? Master? Hold on a second! What are you talking about? Oh, he's gone. What kind of delivery is he expecting? Michel stood there, unmoving, veiled in shadow. He glanced over at me, then threw his gaze to the front door. Huh? At his command, I raised the bar, pulling open the door. After nearly 2 weeks inside, the light from the setting sun almost blinded me. The world went white, my head pounding. After a few moments of intense blinking, my eyes acclimated themselves to the evening. My eyes acclimated themselves to the evening sunlight. There's no one outside. Only a crate easily large enough to fit a child. Is this the package, Master? I turned back to face Michel, but he wouldn't meet my eyes, though it seemed more like he was avoiding looking at the light than me. He's starting to seem more and more like a vampire. Not that I believe in vampires, of course. Regardless, I pray there's nothing bad in here. Oh, that's heavy. Master, could I get some help? Oh, gee, thanks. I am a servant, admittedly, but this is a lot to ask of just one girl. A little help would sure be nice.
Once it's inside, close and bar the door,
he said dispassionately, his head still turned toward the darkness. As you wish, Master.
I'm gonna try this thing now. Try to move it inside.
Once the door was shut, I found myself sucked back into a world of darkness. But it hadn't even been 2 weeks. But the lack of light was beginning to become my normal. The outside world growing farther and farther away. Being holed up in here is definitely not good for me. I should go for a walk sometime, maybe plant some flowers or vegetables. Yeah, I like that idea. Maybe I can grow that old tangle of roots into some fresh parsnip. What else do we have to plant? It'd be great if there were some flower seeds.
What are you doing? Open the box now.
As you wish, Master. Oh, there's food inside? In the box was a burlap sack filled with berries, root vegetables, and smoked meats, as well as an assortment of bread, fruits, and wine. Aside from the fruit and bread, everything else was the same as what Michel had kept in the cellar. And buried beneath the burlap sack was a single book. 1 book a month. He really hasn't gone outside in 10 years.
It appears you have begun to grasp the situation.
Yeah, but why? This was delivered by someone from your house, Master, wasn't it?
A servant, I assume.
Why would they leave without saying anything?
No one wants to talk to a cursed man. In the past, they would occasionally check on me, but that hasn't happened recently.
They think you're cursed?
All right, you don't believe in curses. Then come up with your own explanation. An excuse for them to want to stay away from me. That, for example, I killed someone. Or maybe that I'm insane.
I couldn't.
Regardless, I am not normal. Bring the food down to the cellar, the book to the library. You are, of course, free to refuse and run back off into the woods.
I'll do it.
All right. Then you take care of that.
Hey.
What is it?
I just noticed there's something else in here. It's wrapped in cloth. What could it be? Ooh, a painting. For you to hang up somewhere in the house, I presume? It's so dark I can't see it very well, but I'm sure it's...
Don't touch that!
What? Michel, who had kept his distance from me until that point, suddenly marched over and ripped the painting from my grasp. Master! His face was twisted into a look I had never seen him make before. Was it indignation, disgust, hatred, panic? I couldn't tell, but there was more than enough negative pressure to cause me to flinch back. Is that painting perhaps, something important?
A landscape painting.
He muttered beneath his breath, the tension melting away from his face. I was left looking at his usual blank, impenetrable expression. But his eyes were still fixated on the picture, staring at it unblinkingly.
Why a landscape painting? Some kind of passive-aggressive message? It's not if anywhere nearby. Did they travel somewhere? Well, it's not of that girl, so it's not an improvement. Well, it's not of that girl, so that's an improvement.
Master?
Oh, you're still here?
Still here? Of course I'm still here. Why do you think you asked me to take care of the package? What's with you? Just running over and snatching the painting from me? You scared me. Could you maybe explain yourself? What's so special about that painting?
I don't believe that's any of your business.
None of my... Of course it is! You ripped it out of my hands like I was some kind of thief. I have a right to know what that was all about, and maybe an apology while you're at it. You told me to open the box, so I did. Then all of a sudden you're angry.
We are not equals. Do not mistake yourself for my friend. You have a right to know. You have no such thing.
You don't have to be rude.
I'll say it again. Leave if you don't like it here. I never asked for you to be here. That was your wish.
My wish? Are you out of your mind? I never asked for this. I never wished for it. Who in their right mind would want to be sent to some house in the middle of nowhere? Who would ever want to go through that? No, calm down, Giselle. You can't get angry. You're right, that is what I wanted. But I never wanted to make you mad or for us to argue like this. I just wanted to get to know you better. To get closer to you. I mean, it would make things smoother for the both of us. It would make living together more enjoyable for us.
Listen carefully. This is very important for you to understand. Do not try to involve yourself with me. Do not go probing around for information. And if you can't do that, leave.
I completely shut out. The glare he was giving me and the standoffish aura he was emanating were reflective in the tone of his voice. Why? Why did he try to push me away like that?